Two.
Self.
Oh yeah, you messed up. Yeah, some got changed over. So hold on, there it is.
There we go. Something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
It'll do.
Anyways, welcome back to another fantastic, fresh episodes of this Uncanny Earth coming your way for the next 3 months. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Tonight we're going to be talking about Sounds of Space. We did get to go to West Virginia last weekend for the Wasteland Jamboree, Fallout themed. It was fantastic. Shouts out to Kenny Vigu for meeting us out there, hanging out with us for a bit and showing us a good time. Shouts out to everybody that was there. The costumes were on point. The food was not. 2 hours for a chicken sandwich is a little too much. However, I digress. Went out there. We had a good time. We didn't run into anybody that we didn't know or that we didn't like. And it was all a great time. It was all for a good cause. So hopefully some of you guys made it down there. If you did not, I definitely suggest it. It will be coming back in 2028.
Yes,
so,
28.
Yes, 2028. And we will be there. So do not fret. This Uncanny Earth will be back showing some love. Hello to Donut. Hello to Scruff. Hello to everybody that's in here right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's about all I got on my end. What do you got for us, Spider?
Well, I do have a couple of announcements first off. If anybody wants to hear a bit more in depth on our trip down to West Virginia, I did talk about it more or less at length on the Uncanny Media podcast, which is on Spreaker, so you can check that out. You can also go to uncannymedia.net, which is our website, and you can listen to the episodes in full on that website right there. We have a couple of new affiliates and sponsors. We're affiliated with Chaositry, who is a friend of ours, been an Uncanny fan for quite a long time. She does heirloom plants in South Carolina. They are pickup only, though, so if you're in South Carolina, you're in luck. If you're otherwise someplace else, you got to make a drive. And we are sponsored, gentlemen. We are sponsored by an energy drink, of all things, which I sampled their product, one of them recently, and that is on my YouTube channel, the Spider Does Things channel, if you want to know how that went. Obviously, I'm not a corporate shill kind of guy, so I gave it an honest look, but it wasn't awful, so I hope we continue to work with them, and they continue to work with us after seeing my review. But anyway, we are back, and we are going to be doing some interesting things. This is going to be an interesting episode. It's not going to be our typical philosophical kind of deep thoughts kind of episode. It's more going to be, there's going to be a lot of opinions, I think, and a lot of musing and a lot of talking back and forth, which is fine. First, I want to ask you boys a question. And I'm going to ask you to suspend some previous experience if you already know some of these answers. Space, of course, we know is a vacuum. You can't hear things in space. You can't go out there, and in space, no one can hear you scream, of course, the famous Aliens tagline. If you could hear things in space, again, putting aside what you might already know, let's say you're coming at it from a completely fresh perspective. If you could hear the sounds of space, what do you think it would sound like? I'm not asking you to generate noises like
you already got me.
You can if you want.
Okay, yes.
But I'm just, in general, just what do you think it would sound like passing by a comet or watching a planet orbit something or a star giving off radio frequencies? Steven, you're raring to go, so I'm going to start with you.
What?
That sounds about right, to be honest.
I've actually seen the video, so I cheated.
I mean,
it up recently, but I've seen it like months ago.
Yeah, that's why I figured I'd have to ask you guys to put aside some of that old knowledge and kind of take a fresh look at it, because
I don't know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Did that sound come through here? I don't know. I heard a sound in my headset. As long as nobody else heard that.
That was the last thing I heard.
Then that's fine. I got things going on around here. I'm losing my mind. Anyway, Rob, same question before I go nuts here.
I think you would hear the movement of said meteors, or you might hear the sun shooting off solar flares. You might run into any of those problems. Obviously, if comets are smacking into things, you're going to hear that sound. So I think it's just a bevy of what we want to hear and what we want to listen to. who knows what kind of communication, shortwave radio stuff that aliens might have that might be sending across that you could hear. I don't know how true that one is. That last one might be a stretch or a reach. However, I think that a lot of that stuff you can hear. So I don't know. I've never been to space, so it is what it is.
Well, I'm going to play you guys something. I've got a bunch of audio samples, and hopefully audio samples with StreamYard in the past have not always been the most clear. So I'm hoping this is going to sound okay. It's not like it's a 12-piece or 25-piece orchestra or something like that.
Do we know how they recorded it?
I'm going to get into that
Okay.
also. I'm going to cover where the sounds came from, who authorized them, and the process that they used. So going to be a little technical. First off, I'm going to play you this, and then I'm going to ask you what you think it sounds like before I tell you what it is. So let's hope it comes through fine. I gotta turn off the loop. That is an example of something that's been translated to sound from space. Now, first off, again, what would be your first guess that might be if you heard that in space, Rob?
Sounds like water droplets. If I had to be a betting man, sounds like water droplets. That's what I would think it was.
Steven?
The heartbeat of a planet.
Both good answers. And it does sound very wavy, as in like a liquidy kind of fluid, sort of. This is a black hole merger. Is from sonification of the gravitational waves emitted from the merger of two black holes. This was recorded by NASA. And to get into the technology as to how they got that, because of course you've got no sounds in space, they used a process called sonification. Now, this is going to be a pretty book definition here. Sonification is the process of converting data into non-speech sound to convey information, allowing patterns and relationships in the data to be perceived through hearing. So basically, they take the bits and the bobs and the ones and zeros, and instead of just looking at them at straight data, they transmit them to machines that turn them into audio tones and frequencies that can be heard. And all data has a frequency.
I love frequencies.
All data that we know of can be heard on some level if you translate it the right way. That's how we receive information in our ears. Our ears are receiving data, and it's being translated by our brain into the sound that we're hearing. If you've got an issue with your brain, then you may hear things wrong. You might hear things incorrect or various things like that. Before we get too far afield onto it, because I'm going to stop and ask you guys a lot of these little mini questions. It's going to be kind of a lot of mini talk more than big, long kind of circle kind of things here. Steven, how do you feel about the accuracy of this technology? Do you think it's something that, like that sound we just heard, do you think that's probably pretty accurate? Or do you think maybe the machines took some liberties? How do you feel about it?
Well, of course, they had to take some liberties, but I feel like it was probably about 85 to 90% accurate, in my opinion, because I've already actually studied this last year. Not deeply, but I kind of vaguely looked into it a little bit, and I absolutely love frequencies. And I think that, like you said, frequencies and data, and I know that we've received, shortwave radio frequency messages in the past, and we know about Morse code and all this other stuff, and people hide hidden messages and music when you play it backwards, and if you listen to it at a certain speed and all this. So I have full faith that frequencies can transmit data.
And Rob, what do you think? Do you think that's fairly accurate as well?
Yes and no. So it's somewhat accurate, but I also think if it's anything extraterrestrial, we don't know if that if that exists on a different dimensional plane that we just can't hear, and maybe you're just hearing the exhaust of all of this stuff, you're not really hearing the actual signals. I think a lot of these beings or entities or whatever they are out in space don't communicate in the same way that we do. So I think that there's liberties that have to be taken. You have to kind of extenuate your ideology a bit to fit that format, because if something's out there, it's technologically advanced. Whether it's more technologically advanced than we are has yet to be seen. However, I think that when you're dealing with something like that, you have to always consider the fact that it could be very much of a different dimension. So if you don't take that into account, you're doing yourself an injustice, because you have to factor in multiple ideas, concepts, and feelings. So that's how I look at it, anyways.
I think there is a certain amount of guesswork, definitely, that's involved in the technology and to get it to do the right things. I imagine that the parameters that they've used have changed over time. Because as far as I'm aware, they've been using the sonification process for a few decades at least. I think as far back as the 50s at least, they had the first recordings that they could say this is a sound of possibly a magnetic field or something like that. I'm unsure the exact date, but I don't think they wanted anybody to know the exact date, because it probably started as classified technology and it just kind of came out later. Oh yeah, we've been doing this since the 50s or whatever. So but they are interesting, and I have several sounds we're going to listen to because it's interesting, and they're all very drony. This is the kind of stuff that if you arrange them into a 10-minute song, this is what used to put me to sleep when I was in my 20s. And this is the kind of stuff I would listen to when I was studying and that kind of thing. If I didn't want to listen to regular music, I would listen to this kind of thing, just arranged. And some people have turned this into music, and we're going to address some of that too. Here's the next sound. We're going to see if you guys can guess what this is. Going to be a lot of guessing games.
Somebody making a stove top again. Stove top popcorn.
Definitely sounds like it.
Let's play it one more time. All right, Rob. I know what you just said it sounded like. But what else do you think it might sound like?
Airwave crackling, radio, communications, things like that. So I think that it's definitely not the stovetop popcorn that we used to have as kids, but it's definitely Geiger counter is a good one too. But I think that it's just radio frequencies that are being able to be heard. That's all. That's what I think, anyways.
Steven, what do you think?
I think it sounded like rocket thrusters.
That's a good one too. Shouts out.
Good guesses on both.
Yeah.
It's listed as the sound of Temple 1 comet passing by NASA's Stardust spacecraft.
Interesting.
Okay.
I said it sounded like rocket thrusters.
Yeah, it was good.
And also the crackling. The crackling is almost like the ice clusters and whatever else you get around a comet. So just to also make sure I'm clear, I downloaded all of these from a website called scientific.place, so give them credit. They aren't copyright written because they all came from NASA to begin with, and that's all open information, but I do want to give credit where credit is due, where I got all these things.
You got to. So I respect that.
So that's another example of how the sounds that will pick up, and it makes me wonder about the process too. Well, some of these are going to sound like, okay, I could get that. That sounds like possibly, if I'm thinking about it from sci-fi movies, that sounds like it could be a planet or a star. Some of these, they catch you off guard. They don't sound like what they are. And I don't know if that's part of the process or if that's just what the data comes off as. And the data can be unreliable. The data that you get from these things is there's a multitude of factors. You've got radio waves, you get different nuclear emissions. You've got a lot of things going on. So I'm going to play you one more before we get into a bit more discussion on it. See if you can place this.
Force field.
This is a longer one. Steven, you say it sounds like a force field?
Force field generator. Yep.
It does kind of sounds like power flowing without the little like kind of hiccups that you get sometimes when it meets resistance. Rob, what do you think?
My microwave. Could be a FTL engine. It sounds very much like an engine, but more of the FTL like you would see in a lot of your science fiction games. I think it could be that. I think it could also be the vibration of the planet. There's a lot of different sources that this could be. So for me, it could be a bevy of things, but I think that like definitely the hum of something, whether that be an engine, whether that be a fence, whether that be some form of protection or whatever it have you. It seems very much akin to something that you would hear from like a power line or like a, like JD said, his microwave, very power oriented.
You were on the right track with the vibrations.
Yeah, thank you.
This was created by Stanford Experimental Physics Lab, and it's a sonification of the sun's vibrations. Because as we know, all planets and moons and stars, they all have a vibrational frequency, depending on where their energy level is, whether they're gaseous or more solid. And so that sounds...
And just so we're clear, we don't mean that in like one of those weird hippie crystal situations. This is more of like a scientific aspect of what we're talking about. So just
aligning its chakras,
like Hertz, right?
Yeah, a lot of people say stuff like that, and it's all a show. But this is vibrational frequencies, which are scientifically proven to enhance different things like mood,
and you can levitate things,
physicality. Able to drive people mad. So. Something to think about, even low vibrational.
Directed energy weapons.
Here's another one. We're going to get into a few more things. And then I'm going to get into some interesting what-if sort of questions for you guys. A lot of these I picked them because I thought they sounded cool. And so a good chunk of this episode is me just playing things that I think are cool for you guys. But we are going to talk about some of the implications of that. So here is one of the planets in our solar system. I'm not going to tell you which one. This is one of my favorites. See, that to me sounds like it's something like out of a Doom game or something like that. Like you're just finding the demon portal or something like that, and then whatever. But your guess is Saturn, Steven?
Yes. Final answer.
What do you think, Rob? What do you think that sounds like?
Sounds like Cassini, but I don't think it's the Cassini collection. So it could be Cassini, but I don't know. I've heard Cassini, and it either is or it isn't. But
I'm loving chat today.
It almost sounds too cartoony to be anything in space, to be honest with you. There's just certain aspects of that sound that you wouldn't really hear in space. So it could be something ridiculous. I don't necessarily equate it to a space sound though. There's just certain parts that remind me of like those science fiction records you would get from the library that had all the sound effects that you listened to as a kid. I used to get those out of the library all the time. So for me, I think it has to be something along those lines, and I could be wrong, so that's fine.
It does sound a bit more like some liberties might have been taken with the programming for this one, but they don't tell you the entire exact process for every single sound on here, so it's kind of left to conjecture. You just kind of, they say it's all sonification, and you have to kind of take their word for it, I guess. But this was, according to NASA, sonification of Mercury's solar wind.
Hey, good job, Mac Merlin.
This one I find, once I found out that it was the solar wind, I kind of gave it a little bit more, okay, I can see that, because the solar wind kind of fluctuates, and there's a lot of different energies at play. And I would think a lot of those energies would have different tones and different things going on. I feel like it'd be a bit more chaotic than this, but maybe I'm just, again, I don't know exactly how they programmed the technology. But it's cool nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
We're going to move on to the next one. And like I said, there is a point to all of these once I get to the end. After we get to listen to all the cool little sounds and the synthesizer, I'm going to have a couple of big questions for you. So it is leading to something. Here's the next one. Thoughts. What do you think? What do you think, Steven?
Mozart.
Just fly in space, playing on the piano. What do you think, Rob? Any special guesses?
Maybe Beam Me Up. Maybe it's a teleportation device that's beaming people around the universe. I could see that being a serious thing there. No, whatever I think it is. For me, I would almost have to say. I'm really trying to think about this for a second. I think it could be something along the lines of like, you know what? I don't know. I don't have a guess. I'm trying to equate it with something, but honestly, I can't. So I don't know.
Fair enough. This was the sonification of Venus's radio emissions.
Nice job, Mac Miller. Nice job.
Recorded by NASA's Parker Solar Probe. And it's interesting that the most musical planets out of this whole bunch have been Mercury and Venus. And
well, they are the closest to the sun, and I'm sure they give some form of sound, But
I think the radiation and things of that nature, the solar winds are probably stronger as you're closer to the sun, and I think that has a lot to do with it personally. If I had to make a guess, a lot of that stuff doesn't have or isn't shielded for certain things too. And like I said, we're looking at this from like a normal angle, and I think you have to step outside yourself and look at it from a extraterrestrial point of view, at least a little bit. Hey, Bernard, what's going on, buddy? Hope you're doing well tonight. I think a lot of it too is, when you hear these kind of sounds, the immediate thing you're going to think of is fake, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way this is legit. They recorded this in the lab and bada boom, bada bang. But I also think that while that could be a possibility, I've heard the Cassini sounds. I've heard a couple other different sounds that have been played. Now, could those be false? Of course. I think a lot of the stuff could be false. However, I think that there's some truth to it. I think that there's definitely some sounds that would be, you would hear, if not feel, you know what I mean? If you're feeling the planet shift or you're feeling, some form of
resonance
interaction with comets and vibrational patterns, if something gets hit hard enough, that force reverberates back to you like an earthquake, right? When the earthquake, and some people that are far enough away, they can still feel like these little tremors. I think same basic concept. But some of the sounds for me, feel too
musical,
lifelike.
Almost.
Yeah, too lifelike / musical. Like it's like almost a pattern, and maybe that's the case because everything is pattern based. But whether or not that is true pattern in outer space is a whole different story because none of us here know what the sounds of space are. None of us here have ever been to space. You know what I'm saying? So we're all just going off assumptions and things, but I think a lot of time with your sounds of space, it's going to be more vibrational frequencies. You know what I mean? Just stuff like that. But that's me. What do I know?
Now, for the next several bunch of these, because we've got the pattern down already, and I don't want to get too bogged down by making you play a guessing game, I'm going to tell you what the sounds are. We're going to play them, and we're going to one by one just go through the rest of them and just enjoy listening to them. And then I'm going to talk about some
Enjoy
things
listening to
afterwards.
him.
Enjoy. Just sit back.
Enjoy.
Put on your favorite record.
It's a listening party.
It's the planets.
It's the planets.
But after that, I'm going to have a couple of big questions for you that I've
Okay.
been kind of stewing on here. So this next sound is a sonification of the Earth's magnetic field by the Technical University of Denmark. Oops, let me make sure I actually do it in the thing and not just on my phone because I'm a doofus. You won't be able to hear that. I kind of like that one because it sounds like it's being bombarded by things.
It's almost like I think it sounds like a building.
Almost like it's crumbling, or maybe even a burning building.
Creaking.
Sort of.
No, just creaking. You know, old buildings, they creak. Sometimes you hear different sounds. The building shifts, stuff like that. Tectonic shifts. That's a good one too. Yeah, definitely.
Now, this next one doesn't quite fit the rest of them because this is an actual sound recorded on the surface of an actual planet by a piece of equipment. This is the sound of Mars wind recorded by the Perseverance rover, which makes this kind of unique. It's kind of cool. This is an actual sound that you would hear on Mars.
Just barren, just
nothing
like
to stop it.
It sounds like there was life there at one point, in which
Humans were.
I kind of put the hypothesis that there was life on Mars at one point. But that's another
destroyed
show. But my whole thing is, it almost sounds like if you ever go into like an abandoned abandoned mall, an abandoned ghost town, an abandoned derelict ship, abandoned homes. There's a certain point, like if the wind's kind of moving around, it's kind of hustling, bustling, it's kicking up that noise, kicking up things moving around. And because there's no people there to offset that sound, usually if there's people, there's going to be talking, there's going to be laughter, there's going to be something, right? So that offsets that sort of ghost town, paper rolling by, that sort of thing happening. And I think a lot of times it's the absence. And Mars always reminds me of the absence of people. And that's just me. Like I said, I still think it's a fascinating venture into it, but I think at the same time, it's like, what was there before that makes this sound like? Because it sounds like there was life there at one point, and now it's devoid of life. Like it's for some reason it just has that feeling to me. You know what I mean? Like it's just
that loneliness kind of on the air, sort of like something missing.
Yes.
The next one is possibly one of the ones that you've heard before. This is a sonification of Jupiter's radio waves recorded by NASA's Cassini spacecraft.
Yeah, I was waiting for that one.
So let's get into that.
Big fan of the Cassini.
Sounds like a beach.
Wind chimes.
Chimes, seagulls.
Or like, almost like a music. Like I said, once again, it has like almost a musical rhythm to it.
Wood blocks, something like that.
Kind of like that, yeah. Or even like we said, chimes. Wood chime or wind chimes, things like that.
And I can hear too. I can hear like sitting on the beach with like bird calls and things like that. Like Steven's hearing there, which is interesting as well. I kind of feel like that one's a bit more believable, to be honest, because it's a collection of just tones. It's not necessarily a melody. It's not something that sounds like it's like somebody tapping a finger on a keyboard, making a noise, and then bending the pitch up and down and doing different things to make it sound good. It's just a collection of things occurring. And I feel like that's what the radio waves would be most like. It is just a collection of tones in a bit of a jumble.
You could turn that into music. It could be a whole new genre.
People have, which I'm going to get to
Nice.
towards the end of the show.
My brain's running to a derelict neighborhood. It's about right.
The next one is a sonification of Saturn's radio emissions.
Definitely a heartbeat.
I've heard this. I've heard it.
The heartbeat of a tornado.
It's very eerie, but I think that's because we've been conditioned to
I like the
think
clicking noise in
that
the
stuff like
background.
that is eerie. I
It
think
is eerie because we hear it with our ears.
I think a lot of those sounds are still made, whether or not people hear them. You know what I mean? Especially when you start to get on the surface of these worlds where things like that happen. Do you think that the storm that's rolling across Jupiter makes no noise at all? No, of course not. It's going to make noise. There's going to be sound. So to me, I don't see it as an issue. People say, "Oh, you can't." The vacuum of space. Okay, I mean, in a way, I get what you're saying with the vacuum of space, but at the same time, nobody really knows.
Yeah.
Nobody's
Yeah, we
taking their
haven't been in interstellar travel. We've only been
facts.
in orbit around the planet. So, I mean, everything else beyond that we've heard from, like, these sounds and such has come from the spacecraft that we've sent out.
Yeah, Bernard, I heard that one and the Cassini one. So the Jupiter and the Saturn one I heard that a long time ago, actually, while I was still at university. I remember finding those and listening to them, and I was like, this is freaking crazy. I have them saved somewhere around here. But it's cool to be able to pull a sound like that. If you believe that NASA's real and not a movie studio like my buddy Rando does. But it's a joke. It's a joke.
Werner
But
von
that's
Braun
an
did say the
episode for
final
another
card
show.
tournament would play would be the alien card, and it would all be a lie.
Yeah. So what do you think, Spider? What do you think it is?
NASA, by the way.
As far as the sound goes, I think it's again, I think it's a little more accurate because it sounds like something that radio waves would be. It's got clicks, it's just kind of some tones. It's got a steadiness to it, which is interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that too. All of them do. All of them have like a weird undertone of steadiness.
Yeah, because it's a pattern, and it's as we know, everything in the universe has patterns. Universe too. That's kind of like the universe, but it's with horses. Anyway, everything has a pattern, and everything usually follows regular patterns. There's very few things in existence that are completely, utterly chaotic. Even people like to say, "Oh, I'm just unpredictable," but you just, predictable in different ways.
Right.
So it stands, and again, it's a bit more believable to me than the more musical stuff from Venus and Mercury, which, while that is cool, that sounds more like the machines taking some liberty and trying to say, "Oh yeah, we think it might sound like this for the human ear," whereas this is more a rough translation. So that's my personal thought on it. The next one, I'm going to ask us all to be adults, please, when I say this. This is the sonification of Uranus. I said it that way and not the other way on purpose. Magnetosphere's chorus waves recorded by NASA's Voyager 2 spacecraft. I don't know what happened to my voice there.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
Strange.
I heard it, and I'm one of the sounds now, apparently. I don't want me to play this one. This is probably one of the oldest sounds on this list because the Voyager 2 spacecraft, like Voyager 1, was sent out decades ago, and they have now left the solar system in opposite directions. So this one might be a little bit rough. Let's see how it goes here.
Oh, they hit something.
And to me, that sounds probably the most accurate to raw data being translated into sound than anything else on this list. And it makes most sense because it's the earliest form of this we have on the list, which makes me question again if the other things, maybe they've updated the software to make them sound more believable, more musical. And this was because this sounds like raw data as far as just audio wise. If I were to think about it, it's not quite as bad as the old modem sounds or it's like that kind of stuff, but that one sounds relatively accurate to what I would expect. Any thoughts before I move on?
It sounded like a lawnmower being run at midnight to me.
So for me, it sounded like some form of working, whether that be a factory, whether that be automation, whether that be construction. It just sounded like very much, like you would hear sounds of a factory, people driving forklifts, things getting moved around, pallets getting moved, sounds getting made from pallets getting moved. So for me, it kind of gives me that vibe of like something's going on. Maybe they're building some form of machines there. Nobody would know. It's not like, we can just jump out to Uranus and be like, hey, guess what, guys? What's going on? We can't do it. We can send a satellite, but it's going to take time to get there. And we don't know the layout of the planet. So whatever's there, if that's the case, and it is in fact doing that, and it's production and has factory and it's working in that realm, it's going to be a hard one to spot. But that's what it reminds me of, like, working in factories and hearing like the different motors or the different like machines moving and working and people moving back and forth and working. It reminded me of that. So that's interesting that it would be that sound coming from a planet that, if I remember right, shouldn't even be here in the first place. It was a collision planet. So
None of it should be
something to be said about that, something to be said.
Now, the last sound I have that I got from this website, and this isn't the entirety of all possible sounds that have ever been recorded, but I didn't want to go so nuts that we were listening to a double album, platinum, whatever, of just the planets for like the entire hour.
Planets.
So the last one we have is the sonification of radio missions from Neptune. And let me get on my list here. There it is.
Sounds like crickets at night. I could live on Neptune. But don't be putting all those humans on Neptune. They'll make it too loud.
It sounds very cold, very chill, very
very dead,
calm and relaxing.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff. Again, I love listening to that kind of stuff because it definitely has a calming effect, but it's like the sound from Mars from the wind. It's a very lifeless, very kind of lonely sound when you think about it.
And it's still borderline eerie if you think about it as well. It's a very like odd sound, you know what I mean? So that's why I like it, because it's that sense of nothingness is what it is.
Now, with all of that we just listened to, as far as we're aware, you can't go out and into space and hear all these things with the naked ear. But let's say that you could. Let's say everything out there was pumping out sound of these kind of caliber everywhere you went in space, whether it was space junk or asteroids or stars or planets or solar winds. How different do you think it would be for us to try to travel space, having to deal with so much audio information just coming through all the time? Do you think we'd have to filter it? Do you think we'd have to do something? Do you think we would just go nuts from all the different things going on all the time, just filling your ears with all this stuff?
So
what do you think?
I will say this. I think that could be passed off. You write a good enough program, incorporate some, some internet only AI evolved in it to kind of help you weed out some problems. And I think you have yourself an interesting situation. I don't think you'd have to take on the sounds all the time. I think you could probably have a program written where it would match sounds that how do I put this? Match sounds that we could hear, or match sounds to sounds here on Earth, and cross-reference that through a data bank. And this way, you wouldn't have to have people listening. That'd be its own separate study, its own separate ideology, or its own separate information, like I said previous. And so, to me, you set that up, and then all that does is just continuously record the sounds that are going on, and then start running checks back and forth of what it could be. And then, like, what I would do is I would have a drop down menu that would pop up after the scan was finished to tell you what percentage of it sounded like this, what percentage of it sounded like that, and then you could start, weeding things out. You could start comparing sounds from Cassini and Saturn and the sun and places like that. And Bernard says it'd be as loud as a chainsaw. I believe that. I believe that if you could hear it, that's the case. So for me, I think a lot of this stuff is it's sounds you have to write down. It's sounds you have to cross-reference with a computer, because once again, you can't just stick your head out of the spacecraft with no helmet on. You couldn't do that anyways because of the pool. But once again, until we are able to hear these sounds, right? Now, obviously, there's certain sounds you would hear if two space shuttles crash into each other. It's going to make a sound. However, it's the fact that the sound doesn't travel is the problem. And so for me, I would have to say once again that you'd have to have a program that runs side by it, like an AI, or like a just an internet based AI, and have it run cross reference checks with the internet, see what pops up, and then go from there.
Steven, what do you think? If you were bombarded by all these sounds out in space, how do you think we would deal with that?
I wouldn't have to, because I would send a bunch of deaf people out to space, so they wouldn't have to worry about dealing with the sound. And then we would take Rob's idea of encoding all the sounds into a computer program, and then we could send it back to Earth, or even have scientists right there on the ship, deaf scientists, and we could transcode the audio back into data, like you said a minute ago, and then we could read the data. So it doesn't even matter that they're deaf.
Modern problems requiring modern solutions.
Yep.
My whole thought process behind that, though, is if it's something that's more extraterrestrial than just like space, I think that could be an issue, right?
But we wouldn't understand it whether it was audio or data.
I think too, because deaf people for the most part haven't heard sound before, right? So they would feel that because their other senses would heighten.
What's that, Sonny? You forgetting us old folks over here?
They're going to feel that different than you and I would feel that. You know what I mean? Because we were able to hear these kind of things. So for them, I think it's something that they feel differently. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, like Daredevil. Because
yeah. Because it's about survival. You know what I'm saying?
And a bunch of old folks that used to have the hearing and are losing it now.
Maybe, but old people can't travel in space. Their bodies are too frail. They break apart.
Unless you use frequencies from a rife machine to help them. And we could use CRISPR technology to give them stronger bones and activate the immortal jellyfish gene and reverse their aging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All good points.
And I'm not talking science fiction. This is technology that we have now.
Of course.
Right. Those are both some good answers. And I think, we would have to probably have something to kind of sort through all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with all that being said, and with everything we've just heard, there are a couple of ways that people can experience these sounds without just hearing them as they are, because some enterprising people have arranged them into musical compositions.
Yay.
Now, if anybody wants to hear the raw sounds that I downloaded, of course, you can go to scientific.place /sounds of space, and it has all of them listed there that we just played tonight. But at some point in the past, and I have it somewhere and I couldn't find it, I have a digital copy, NASA actually had put out sometime in maybe the 70s or something. I don't know. They put out a record, like an LP of arranged sounds.
I'll look that up real quick. Hold on.
I tried to find it a minute ago and I couldn't.
I remember this.
And where they were musical to a point, it wasn't like you put it on and you're going to hear beats and things and you're going to hear, get down with it. But it was like
1977.
Hey,
Voyager Golden Records are two identical phonograph records.
No. Those are different. Those are the
Okay.
ones they sent out into space.
Okay.
Different, buddy, different.
Never mind.
Those are the other ones.
I thought I found it.
Those are the other ones.
You thought wrong.
That's data that they made about us and the planet that they sent
Yep.
out, hoping
Yep.
aliens would find
Yeah.
it.
But that's easy to get mixed up.
It does say it includes 90 minutes of music, though.
Yeah, that's
It's Sir
Earth
Mix
music.
Live. It's all
Okay.
Sir Mix Live.
But they did put out something, and I've got it somewhere. And maybe if I find it, I'll try to bring it up on another show so people can look it up.
Mhm.
But the other one that I do know, and it's out of print, so I don't know how easily you're going to be able to find it. Some people may have it through various digital means, if you know the right people. It is by a musician called Lustmord, who primarily he does dark ambient, like creepy background music stuff like I like. But he made an album called Arecibo, the Trans-Plutonian Transmissions. And it was all based off of data collected from the Arecibo array. He took everything that giant antenna had been listening to, with permission, of course,
Yes.
and he translated into tones, and he arranged it into ambient drone music. So it's not, when you put on one of the tracks, that's not what it would have sounded like naturally when he first heard the sound. He arranged things in a way that was aesthetically pleasing. So all of the sounds within the track are made from space sounds, but he made them into a musical composition. So it's not easy to track down. I mean, he's not top 40 sort of music anyway. But if you can find it, it's well worth a listen. It's pretty cool. It's very interesting. I haven't listened to it in several years, and I need to pull it out and give it a chance now that we're on this subject. I wanted to listen to it ahead of time to kind of pregame for this, and time got away from me.
Pregame.
Pregame. And now there's thunder outside, so there's that going on. So there's that, and other people have done similar things as samples on albums. I don't have an exhaustive list, but if you take a quick search online, you can find a lot of different options. Most people just incorporate them into their own tracks, things like that. They don't make entire compositions, but so there's a lot out there if you're interested in the subject. Final thoughts. I thought it was an interesting subject. I know it wasn't our usual subject matter where we kind of get into a topic and get into some philosophy and dig into stuff, but I thought it was worth getting into because it's something fun. We don't always do things that are just fun to do sometimes. We get into some serious stuff. What do you guys think about all this? Do you think it's worth doing? Is there a point to continue to turn the data into audio, or is it basically just a hobby and it's just something that's just for fun?
Why not both? It can be important because it's a hobby and it is fun for people and it keeps them entertained so they don't have to see how insignificant they are in the grand scheme of everything in their existence on this planet.
What do you think, Rob? Final thoughts?
I think that it's just more of us being curious about our surroundings, where we come from, our information that we can pull in, break down the data, send it to our colleagues, let them expound upon it, figure out where we sit in the whole idea and concept of things, and move forward in a way that benefits both mankind and our future in space. And I think by understanding these different sounds, patterns, vibrational aspects, it allows us to sort of start putting those feet forward into some space exploration. As I've said for many years personally, I'm a big fan of space exploration. I feel like we need to think of a way to kick ourselves out to the stars and start colonizing other worlds and start really making it happen. I find the whole idea fascinating. I think that those sounds that we're hearing are part of a broader picture, some anomalies from some space explorations, things like that. You know what I mean? I honestly think that that's just part and parcel to who we are as people, our curiosity for space, fascinates me. That's why I think we've been there before, because people have an unknown curiosity for space travel.
We
And,
come from Mars.
maybe it's possible. I have no proof, but it's possible. Sure.
We come from Mars and the moon isn't real.
Sure, cheese. Even if you want to play the route of the cheese man. You
No,
understand?
I'm saying fake space station.
Oh, yeah. Satellite even.
Yep.
But yeah,
Transformers.
that's yeah. Autobots roll out. But yeah, that is my that's my take on that.
Ooh, I like it, McMurlin.
Well, I'm interested because, like I said, I'm always big into space stuff. Space has always fascinated me. I think by the time we managed to make a big push out there, it's going to be past my age. I'm never going to make it into space, which is a shame. But still, things like this, the sounds are a good way for me to kind of live vicariously through all of that and kind of like think about what it might be like. That cat loves it, obviously.
That's his favorite.
I just wanted to say that you said you're never going to make it out into space in your time, but science itself says that matter is neither created nor destroyed. So you don't actually die. You just change your energy into a different type of material or frequency, but you still get to go on. It's just a new form of life that we don't quite understand yet.
And
so
some people have said we're all made of star stuff to begin with.
Immortal spiritual beings.
That's no moon.
Whichever way that goes, we'll have to see. My daughter's just getting into Star Wars movies. We're finished the first 3. We're on to the good ones are coming up.
The soul.
The good ones are coming up.
The first 3 are good.
Yeah, they're okay.
They made a movie about that.
They're better than the last 3. They're better than the last 3.
Anything. I'd rather watch the Star Wars Christmas special than those last 3.
But before I get too far off into the weeds with that, I want to thank my co-hosts Rob and Steven for being here. Steven is on deck next week for the next episode. We've got a new rotation, as we usually do with each season, and we will have a new theme song because I was lazy and I didn't get it done this time, despite the fact that we said we're going to do that every season, have a new theme song. So next week we will have the next remix of the theme song, and it'll be Steven's turn. Steven, do you have an idea what you're doing?
Hyperdrives.
Hey, get the star lines going. There we go. Yep. So that's fun. That's all I've got. Is there anything else anyone else has? Any business? Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Nope.
Well, there we go. Guess it's time to sign us off.
Anyways, folks, we'll be joining us next week for episode 358, talking about some hyperdrive, some fueling in Starways. If you're looking to find us, you can find us at our respective social media websites. A big thank you once again to Kenny Vigu for the Wasteland Jamboree. Great time, great people. Even the 2-hour chicken sandwich and why it was the middest chicken sandwich or chicken salad
in the VIP section, no less. VIP section.
And they told us to go sit and wait, and we could have just got our beers right then and there.
That's all we went in for.
Met some really cool people, saw some really cool costumes and some really cool fake weaponry. It was just really cool. So shouts out to all of them. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for us tonight. We hope you enjoyed our discussion on the sounds of space. You can listen to this after the fact over there at the YouTubes. Go check us out, youtube.com at This Uncanny Earth. You can listen to all of our old episodes. Go listen to all of them. Every single one of them. Go now and listen to them and just absorb what we're saying. Next week we'll have Steven talking about hyperdrives. And the week after that you'll have me, and I'll tell you what we talk about next week. Anyways, as always, people, as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see all of you fine, beautiful folks right here next Saturday with Steven, 358 hyperdrives. Until then, peace.